Hey everyone, welcome back. We remember when Trump said he doesn't need anything from Canada, right? Well, today, I'm going to show you a case of Trump voters needing Canada, while saying that our ban on their alcohol is unfair and discriminatory. Isn't it ironic, don't you think? I also have a report that shows the US point of view on the state of the bourbon industry, as well as comments from the Bulwark on the situation. I don't know much about the Bulwark channel, but it appears to be a center-right channel that does not support Trump. Their comments clearly suggest that Trump's tariffs are ridiculous, though they are still framed with a sense of US exceptionalism. So I'm going to show you all of this today. Today's backdrop comes from Robert, who sent in this photo from Moncton, New Brunswick. He captured the sunset perfectly, and I had 4 photos to choose from, and it was tough to make a decision. Thank you for sending this over, Robert. Before I start, I want to give a quick shout out to one of my good friend's cousin, who I recently found out was watching my channel. I do let a small group of people know that I have this channel. It was kind of funny how my friend found out. I think they were randomly talking about Canada-US border issues, and my channel somehow came up. So I thank you for supporting my channel. Alright, let's get started. So a few of you sent me this one via email and Blue Sky. There's a whole Reddit thread about it in the r/BuyCanadian subreddit. Long story short, for those who didn't hear it yet, the Distilled Spirits Council of the USA made a complaint to the US Trade Commissioners about Canada. They're claiming that our boycott, and even the halt in sales of US alcohol, is discriminatory, as well as protecting our own. So let me get this straight. You voted for Donald Trump. Collectively, the lemmings got him into the office. You voted for these tariffs that your president is putting on the world. Other countries are standing up for themselves and not taking your country's shit. And now, we're being accused of being discriminatory and protecting our own. The Distilled Spirits Council of the USA's CEO is this guy, Chris Wonger. And whenever I do a story about the US liquor industry, this idiot is always here. He's the same guy who called us boneheaded for removing the alcohol from our shelves. He's also the same guy who said his industry should be exempt from all tariffs because they're unique and distinguished or some other bullshit like that. But now he's saying we're being unfair in protecting our own? To the Distilled Spirits Council and Chris Wonger, go fuck yourself. And just to discredit your claim that we're protecting our own, we're not. We still have liquor from other countries on our shelves. And quite frankly, those other countries are now reaping the benefits that you are just so used to. So no, we're not protecting our own. We're simply avoiding anything that comes from your country. This Reddit user also posted a paragraph from the article that made him smile. And it made me smile as well, so I'm going to read it out for everyone. Most provinces removed US alcohol this year, with Alberta and Saskatchewan putting it back on the shelves over the summer. US producers say that the Canadian sales fell by 68% in April, and then dropped off by 85% in the second quarter, to less than $10 million. They're asking for Greer's backing on ending the provincial sales ban. I'm pretty sure that alcohol is not going back on our shelves. And even if it did, I know millions of Canadians still wouldn't buy it. I'm honestly dumbfounded by how arrogant these liquor officials are. They're playing the victim in a situation that their own vote caused. It's like standing up to a bully, and when you finally fight back, the bully runs to the teacher to complain that you're not letting him bully you anymore. I hope that analogy makes sense. I'm not a heavy drinker myself. I might have a drink when I go out, but that's about it. But even if the US had great alcohol, it only takes one person's persistent attitude to completely turn me off from buying US liquor in the future. Maybe things change down the road, let's say a decade from now. But if I see a bottle of Jack Daniels on the shelf, I'll immediately remember Chris Swonger's smug look and the constant gaslighting. And honestly, that's enough for me to never buy the US alcohol again. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with me or not. And if you do agree, and you're not subscribed, please help my channel out by hitting that subscribe button below. Now I want to move on to a report about what the US media thinks is the issue with their liquor industry.
Industry has seen an overhaul slow down over the past 2 years. Addie Miner spent the day getting the facts on what this means for the state of the bourbon industry. She joins us now. Addie, what'd you learn?
Rick, in the statement we got from Jim Beam, they didn't quite specify why the production pause was happening, but
I find it funny that there's no official statement on the why. We know they're pausing for all of 2026 and saying that they're using that time for upgrades. But again, what is the why? It leads me to believe that they don't want to say it, or that it would be a shot to their ego to admit that the declining sales to Canada by as much as 85% is seriously hurting their bottom line.
They said they were seizing the opportunity to make site enhancement. Now, experts in the bourbon industry tell us, like the one that I spoke with earlier today, says this doesn't come as much of a surprise as the market has shrunk around 7% over the past 2 years.
So right now they're estimating that there's roughly 16 million barrels resting in Kentucky, as we like to say.
That's almost double the amount of resting barrels from just 15 years ago. And according to bourbon industry expert John Hudson, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing.
16 million, that's a big number. And when you see the consumer takeaway start to flatten out a bit, even decline in some instances, it creates a little bit of a surplus. And I think that's what companies are trying to navigate right now.
You definitely have a surplus in barrels. And I'm sure a lot of the alcohol in storage should have gone to Canada and even other countries that decided to cut back on purchase orders or stop altogether. But this next part, I want you to listen carefully to their excuses and their reasonings for the decline.
On Saturday, Jim Beam announced it will pause production at its main facility in Claremont. The company says it came to the decision after assessing consumer demand versus current production levels.
The last 24 to 30 months in the industry, you're seeing a lot of marquee brands in the industry down 5, 7, 9%.
That dip in demand, Hudson says, comes from much more than just tariffs.
So I think consumers are not only drinking less than they did during COVID, but I think they're just drinking less overall or in general, particularly millennials that are looking for healthier alternatives.
I'll agree on this. People are drinking less these days. As a geriatric millennial, and yes, that is a terminology one of my Gen Z staff told me, I definitely drank way too much in my younger years. But those days are long gone, and same for a lot of my friends as well. But while this is a factor, it's not the main one. They did briefly mention tariffs, but I think he spent a whole half a second talking about it. So when these so-called experts downplay the real reason, it makes me wonder, were you part of that group that was tricked into thinking that these tariffs were a good thing overall? I'll let you guys decide yourself on that one.
Alternatives like non-alcoholic drinks, THC-infused drinks, or other THC products in general. It also doesn't help that the industry's biggest consumer, Canada, has slowed or in some provinces stopped entirely importing bourbon in retaliation to President Trump's tariffs.
You're seeing it flow through the industry, so everything from the larger producers to the smaller producers are being hit.
While things are down right now, Hudson says he believes this is more of a market correction after the spike in sales during COVID inflated projections.
Fuck's sakes, here we go again. Another US expert saying that this whole mess that we're in, and where their liquor industry is right now, is just a market correction. I seriously hate it when these experts say things like, we've been through this before, it's just a correction. We've always experienced ups and downs. Tourists will come back, or we'll get through this. I hate it because in my mind, it completely downplays the situation we're actually in. And it tells me that these officials aren't taking it seriously. But more than anything, it's the arrogance. The arrogance of assuming that things will just go back to normal. COVID, 9/11, natural disasters. These were events that caused drops in sales or tourism that were out of their control. What we're dealing with now in 2025 with the orange guy and the 77 million of his idiots is not the same as anything in the past. That's 2 F-bombs now. I must be hanging around Josh too much.
And that this downturn isn't necessarily unprecedented.
I do think the industry, it's still solid. It's still a large consumer category. It's going to rebound, and I think we're going to see things tick back up. It just may take some time.
In the meantime, Jim Beam says it's going to use this pause in production to update its main production facility while continuing operations at its 2 other production facilities, saying they don't have plans to lay off any employees. Now, the visitor center will remain open, allowing tours to continue.
As a rare purchaser of your mediocre liquor, it isn't going to bounce back for me. There's a ton of other options out there that I'll choose for the rest of my life. Now, I want to show parts of a podcast from the Bulwark. They talk about the impact that Canada is having on the US liquor industry, but they just don't quite get it.
All right, Sonny, you consume a fair amount of bourbon.
I have my share.
What do you make of this?
No, it's really interesting having watched the various bourbon boom and bust cycles over the years kind of play out because they happen in weird ways. Like a few years back, shortly after I got seriously into drinking, because in college you just drink Jim Beam and that's fine. And then you get a little more serious into it. You get into, the different
you get to the maker's level
taste,
and then you get a little bit higher.
You get beyond
I'll agree with this. Back in my school days, or the days when I used to go to a club on a weeknight, get home at 4 in the morning, and be up again at 7 for work, we just buy the cheapest crap we could find. And Jack Daniels and Jim Beam were usually what we bought, because they were cheap. Now, if I'm having a whiskey these days, it's more likely to be something like a Johnny Walker Double Black, a Lafroig 10, or a Lagavulin 16, or Macallan, or something else with a bit of a smokier taste. I'm not a whiskey expert at all. I really don't know the differences. But I've definitely leveled up from my Jim Beam and Jack Daniel days.
You get beyond Knob Creek, you start getting into the Willets and whatever, the Buffalo Trace heritage labels, etc. And it's interesting to watch this play out because there was a big boom when China really got into spirits. So China gets into spirits, prices go way up, stuff gets harder to find. For a while, there was a very controversial story a few years back. Jim Beam was going to change their formula to decrease the proof so they could stretch the bottles further to meet the demand in China. This was a very big thing. And then that ended up getting kind of walked back. And now obviously it is not as big a problem. And so there are other factors in play here. There's a health factor in play right now, right? Like people are drinking less just in general.
I'm not sold on this people drinking less excuse. That keeps coming from a lot of US citizens and officials. Let me ask this. If Trump never existed and his dad put on a condom, and 2025 turned out to be a normal year. I say normal because 2025 has been turned into a complete shit show. Would the US liquor industry really be suffering right now? Would we be having these kind of conversations? I'm going to say there might still be a slow decline from fewer people drinking. But when your main export gets cut off and tells you to screw off, that's why we're even having this conversation in 2025. Do you agree with me on this? To me, this excuse of people drinking less is just as annoying as the tourism industry blaming the lack of tourists on the weather.
Because there's Ozempic and everything else. Like there is a decrease in demand. There's a decrease in China. The Chinese economy was hit very hard. I think their imports of American whiskey was down 6 or 7% over the last couple of years. So like they're importing less. But the Canada thing is crazy. I want to read the line from the press release. Catherine kind of alluded to it here, but it was crazy. Let's see. Swanger said, so the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States CEO and President Chris Swanger said, nowhere is this shift more pronounced than in Canada, where U.S. spirits exports plummeted 85%, falling below $10 million in the second quarter of 2025. 85%. That's like an extinction level event. Now, of course, Canada, not as big as the United States and, whatever, but
whatever. Yeah, we don't need to be as big and bold as the United States. You can go ahead and take the bigger population title. You can also take the title for the most mass shootings and the most gun violence in the world. So congrats.
The anger and the frustration with the Canadians against America right now is something else. And this hurts. Look, this doesn't hurt me. It's actually, all of this benefits me, the bourbon consumer, because there's more
until the booze companies go out of business.
Well,
this right here is why I wanted to show this clip. I don't know who she is, but she gets it. There are so many haters in my comments saying things like, good, don't visit. Things will be cheaper for us. Or get lost, tourists. Maybe now we could afford things. The economy doesn't work that way. If a business isn't getting revenue, they'll most likely raise their prices to try to cover their expenses, costs, salaries, and everything else. Or they'll shut down altogether. And we've already been seeing this happen all over the United States, both in the tourism and even in the liquor industry. So this logic, it does not make sense to me.
Until they go, until they go out of business. But like the stuff in America, I have already noticed this is a little bit cheaper than it has been. American-made bourbons are easier to access and slightly cheaper than they have been in recent months. So this is fine for me, but it sucks for Kentuckians. It sucks for the people in Kentucky. In 2016, 63% of Kentuckians voted for Donald Trump. In 2020, it's 62%. In 2024, it's 64%. The Jim Beam Distillery employs 1,000 people. A lot of those people are going to be idled. And this is entirely because of trade war against Canada. Of all of the bizarre economic things that have happened over the last 12 to 18 months, that was by far the weirdest. Like trying to pick a fight with Canada made no sense whatsoever. And we're seeing the fruits of it in this very specific, but like, again, very important industry to an entire state of the union.
And by the way, I should mention that it's not only counter tariffs in Canada. There are some provinces that just like banned the sale. Like they have state owned alcohol stores.
Yes.
And they just took all of the US booze.
Just to correct the lady for a moment, we have provinces and territories, not states like you. I just want to make that clear. But back to the guy with the glasses. He's right. Putting tariffs on Canada and targeting your closest friend and ally is one of the weirdest things that's happened in 2025. I'm glad he understands that. I'm also glad he acknowledged it publicly. So that's genuinely appreciated. Now, they also said it sucks for the people in Kentucky. Personally, for those in the liquor industry who voted for Trump, you get zero sympathy from me. For those in the liquor industry who didn't vote for Trump, I'm just going to do a very stereotypical Canadian thing and say, sorry. But we've got to do what we've got to do to defend our country. Okay, that's it for today's video. If you found any value in anything I said today, help support the channel by hitting the like and subscribe button below. Before I end this video, a lot of you asked about my other co-host who's never vocal. She's a Tory who mostly keeps to herself and is nowhere near as vocal as the other co-host. So I thought I'd share a photo with you to give everyone an idea of what cat number 2 looks like. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.